When I first met Liz, I thought I had found my forever. She was beautiful, driven, and had this way of making everyone around her feel special. We connected immediately, bonding over shared interests, mutual goals, and the kind of conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. After a year of dating, I was sure she was the one. Every moment we spent together felt like a confirmation that I was ready to take the next step. So, with the help of my sister and some advice from my closest friends, I planned a proposal that I thought would be unforgettable. It wasn't anything too flashy. I knew Liz valued meaningful moments over grand gestures, so I chose a spot that held sentimental value for us, the park where we had our first date. I set up a small picnic under a sprawling oak tree, complete with her favorite wine, a cozy blanket, and a playlist of songs that reminded me of her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I pulled out the ring. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding, but I managed to get the words out. "Liz," I began, looking into her eyes, "you've made my life better in every way. I can't imagine a future without you in it. Will you marry me?" For a moment, her expression was unreadable. Then, to my surprise, she hesitated. I don't know," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had envisioned this moment so many times in my head, but never once did I imagine it going like this. "You don't know?" I repeated, my voice faltering. She looked away, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her dress. "I need time to think," she said. "This is a big decision, and I'm not sure I'm ready yet." The atmosphere, once warm and romantic, felt like it had turned icy. I forced a smile, trying to mask the crushing disappointment swelling inside me. "Okay," I said finally, sliding the ring back into its box. "Take your time." We packed up the picnic in near silence, the weight of her hesitation hanging heavy between us. By the time we got back to her apartment, I wasn't even sure what to say. "I'll give you some space," I said as we stood at her doorstep. She nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "I think that's a good idea." As I walked away, the question that kept echoing in my mind was why? Why had she hesitated? Why wasn't she ready? Little did I know, the answers to those questions would change everything. The days following the proposal were some of the most awkward and emotionally draining of my life. Liz and I barely spoke. The easy conversations and playful banter that had once defined our relationship were replaced with strained silences and forced small talk. I didn't want to pressure her, so I gave her the space she'd asked for. But the uncertainty was eating me alive. Every unanswered text and delayed response felt like another nail in the coffin of what we had built together. My friends and family tried to be supportive, but even they didn't know what to say. My sister, Claire, was especially worried. "You need to talk to her," Claire said during one of our phone calls. "You can't just sit in limbo like this." "I know," I replied, sighing heavily, "but I don't want to push her. What if that makes things worse?" Claire was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Maybe, but what if it's already worse, and you're just avoiding it?" Her words stuck with me. A week after the proposal, Liz finally texted me asking to meet for dinner. I jumped at the chance, hoping this would be the moment we'd clear the air and move forward together. But when I arrived at the restaurant, the tension was palpable. Liz looked tired, almost as if the weight of her thoughts had been dragging her down. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "Of course," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "I've been wanting to talk." She nodded, fiddling with the napkin in her lap. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she began. My stomach churned. I braced myself for whatever was coming next. "You're an amazing guy," she said, her voice tinged with guilt. "And I care about you so much, but I'm just not sure I'm ready for marriage." Her words felt like a blow, but I forced myself to stay composed. "Okay," I said slowly. "Then what are we doing? Are we still moving towards something, or are we just here?" She looked away, her hesitation speaking volumes. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just need more time to figure things out." Hearing her uncertainty felt like standing on quicksand. I had poured so much into this relationship, my time, my energy, my heart, and now it felt like it was all slipping away. "I can give you time," I said finally, "but I need to know if this is something you want to work toward." Because I can't keep holding on if you're not sure. She nodded, but her response didn't give me the clarity I was looking for. As the days turned into weeks, the distance between us only grew. Liz became more withdrawn, her excuses for not spending time together becoming more frequent. "Work's been crazy," she'd say, or "I'm just feeling overwhelmed." I tried to be understanding, but deep down, I knew something was off. The woman who had once been my biggest cheerleader, my partner in everything, now felt like a stranger. One night, after another canceled date, I confided in Claire. "She's pulling away," I said, my voice heavy with frustration. "I don't know what to do." Claire was quiet for a moment before replying. "Have you ever thought about why she hesitated in the first place?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "Maybe it's not just about her feelings," Claire said. "Maybe there's something else going on, something she's not telling you." Her words sent a chill down my spine. "Like what?" I asked, though part of me wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Claire sighed. "I'm not sure, but I have a feeling there's more to this than she's letting on." Little did I know, Claire's instincts were spot on. A few days after my conversation with Claire, she called me out of the blue. Her tone was serious, almost urgent. "Can we meet up? I need to talk to you about something," she said. I agreed, though I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be a casual chat. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, and from the moment I saw her, I knew something was up. Claire didn't waste any time. "I've been thinking a lot about Liz and the way she's been acting," she began, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "And something isn't adding up." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "I ran into one of her friends the other day," Claire said carefully. "She didn't realize we were related, and she mentioned something that caught me off guard." "What did she say?" I pressed, leaning forward. Claire hesitated, clearly unsure of how to deliver the news. "She said Liz has been talking to someone else. A guy. Someone she used to know before you two got together." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. Claire nodded. I didn't want to believe it, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The hesitation, the distance, it all lines up. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what she was saying. "Did she say who the guy is?" "His name's Derek," Claire said. "Apparently, he's an ex of hers. Someone she's kept in touch with off and on." Derek. The name sounded vaguely familiar. Liz had mentioned him once in passing, describing him as an old flame who didn't work out. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it, but now, everything felt like it was clicking into place. Why wouldn't she just tell me? I asked, my voice a mix of anger and hurt. Claire sighed. "Probably because she knows how it would look. And honestly, it's easier to string you along while she figures out what she wants than to be honest." Her words stung, but I knew she was right. I spent the rest of the day replaying every interaction with Liz in my mind, searching for signs I might have missed. The late-night texts she'd brush off as work, the sudden cancellations, the way she'd become more guarded. It all pointed to something I hadn't wanted to see. That night, I couldn't sleep. The weight of Claire's revelation was too much to ignore. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The next morning, I called Liz and asked if we could talk. She sounded hesitant but agreed to meet at her apartment. When I arrived, she greeted me with a strained smile. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone cautious. I didn't waste any time. "Who's Derek?" I asked bluntly. Her face froze, the color draining from her cheeks. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice wavering. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said. "Claire told me everything. You've been talking to him, haven't you?" Liz stammered, struggling to find the right words. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, my voice rising. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been stringing me along while keeping one foot in the past." She looked away, guilt etched across her face. "We reconnected a few months ago," she admitted. "It started out as casual, but I don't know. I got confused." "Confused?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You're engaged to me, Liz. Or at least, you were supposed to be. How could you do this?" She didn't answer, and the silence was deafening. The silence in Liz's apartment was unbearable. I sat there, staring at her, waiting for an explanation that might somehow make sense of the mess she had created. But she just looked down, avoiding my gaze, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Start talking," I said, my voice low but firm. She took a shaky breath. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she began. "When Derek and I reconnected, it was just casual. We were catching up, talking about old times, but then it got complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated, my anger bubbling to the surface. "You're engaged to me, Liz. What's complicated about that?" She winced at my tone but didn't argue. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said softly. "I was just confused about my feelings." Her words felt like a slap in the face. "Confused? You don't get to use that as an excuse," I shot back. "You had plenty of chances to tell me the truth, but instead, you let me propose to you while you were reconnecting with some ex behind my back." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sympathy. Not anymore. "I didn't want to ruin what we had," she said. "I care about you so much, and I didn't want to lose you." "You didn't want to lose me?" I said, laughing bitterly. "Liz, you've already lost me. The moment you started hiding things and lying, you destroyed everything we had." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "I was going to tell you," she insisted. "I just needed time to figure out what I wanted." "Time," I said, my voice rising. "Time for what? To decide if I'm good enough for you? To weigh me against Derek like I'm some kind of backup plan?" She flinched, her tears spilling over. "That's not what I meant," she said, her voice breaking. "Then what did you mean, Liz?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been playing both sides, keeping me on the hook while you explored your feelings for someone else." She didn't respond, and the silence spoke volumes. I stood up, unable to stay in that room a second longer. "You know what? I'm done," I said, my voice cold. "I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who knows what they want and doesn't have to figure it out." Liz started to cry harder, but I didn't care. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. As I walked out the door, I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and relief. It wasn't the closure I had hoped for, but it was enough to make me realize that this relationship wasn't worth saving. Walking away from Liz's apartment was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every step felt heavier than the last, and by the time I reached my car, the weight of the situation finally hit me. I sat behind the wheel, staring blankly at the dashboard. My mind replayed everything Liz had said. The excuses, the hesitation, the lies. It all felt surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The drive home was a blur. When I finally stepped into my apartment, the silence was deafening. The life I had spent so long building with Liz, the plans, the dreams, the future we'd talked about, had crumbled in an instant. The next few days were rough. I called off work, unable to focus on anything other than the heartbreak and betrayal that consumed me. Friends reached out, offering support and encouragement, but I wasn't ready to talk. My sister Claire, however, wouldn't let me wallow. "You need to get out of your head," she said during one of her daily check-ins. "This isn't the end of the world, even if it feels like it right now." "I don't know, Claire," I said, my voice heavy. "It's hard not to feel like I've wasted the last year of my life." "You didn't waste anything," she replied firmly. "You loved someone, and that's not something to be ashamed of. But now it's time to take care of yourself." Her words resonated, even if I wasn't ready to act on them just yet. Over the next few weeks, I forced myself to take small steps toward healing. I deleted Liz's number, blocked her on social media, and put away the mementos of our relationship. It wasn't easy. Every photo, every ticket stub, every little reminder felt like reopening a wound, but I knew it was necessary. I also started focusing on the things I had let slide during my relationship. I reconnected with old friends, threw myself into work, and even picked up a new hobby, cycling, which gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. The more I distanced myself from Liz, the more I realized how much I had compromised in our relationship. I had bent over backward to make her happy, often at the expense of my own needs. Now, for the first time in a long time, I was putting myself first. One evening, as I was scrolling through my phone, I stumbled upon a post from one of Liz's friends. It was a picture of Liz and Derek, smiling at what looked like a casual dinner party. The caption read, "Rekindled connections are the sweetest." I felt a pang of anger, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of clarity. This was the person she had chosen over me, a person from her past who had left her confused and unsure. Seeing them together only confirmed what I already knew. I had dodged a bullet. Claire was right. I hadn't wasted my time with Liz. I had learned from it. The experience taught me the importance of self-worth, the value of honesty, and the necessity of setting boundaries. It showed me that love isn't about holding on to someone who doesn't appreciate you. It's about finding someone who values you for who you are. As the weeks turned into months, the raw pain of the breakup began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of resilience. Healing wasn't linear, but with each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more like myself. My focus shifted to rebuilding my life on my own terms. I started taking on new challenges at work, pouring my energy into projects that excited me and gave me a sense of purpose. My confidence grew with every success, reminding me of my value outside of any relationship. Cycling, the hobby I had picked up during my healing journey, became more than just a distraction. It became a passion. Early morning rides through quiet streets and scenic trails gave me a sense of freedom and clarity I hadn't experienced in years. It became my time to reflect, to process, and to let go of the weight I'd been carrying. Liz's absence, once so glaringly painful, became a blessing. Without her hesitation and indecision clouding my life, I felt lighter. I wasn't chasing after someone who didn't know what they wanted. I was chasing after the best version of myself. Then, one day, I heard a piece of news that confirmed just how far I'd come. Claire called me, her tone somewhere between exasperation and amusement. "You'll never guess what I just heard," she said. "What's up?" I asked, curious. "Liz and Derek broke up," she said. Apparently, it didn't take long for her to realize he wasn't the Prince Charming she thought he was. I wasn't surprised. Liz had spent so much time chasing what-ifs and nostalgic fantasies that she hadn't stopped to consider the reality of her choices. Derek, from what little I knew of him, wasn't exactly a stand-up guy. "Doesn't surprise me," I said, shrugging. "Here's the kicker," Claire added. "She's been asking around about you, saying she misses what you two had and wonders if there's any chance you'd take her back." I laughed, genuinely amused for the first time in what felt like forever. "Not a chance," I said. The thought of Liz wanting to rekindle things didn't fill me with anger or sadness. It filled me with clarity. I had moved on, grown stronger, and found a peace that didn't rely on anyone else's validation. As the conversation with Claire ended, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. Liz's hesitation, her betrayal, her eventual regret. It was all part of a journey that had taught me invaluable lessons about love, trust, and self-respect. I realized that love shouldn't leave you feeling uncertain or questioning your worth. It shouldn't be a game of waiting to see if someone chooses you. Love should be mutual, uplifting, and secure. Today, my life feels full in a way it hasn't in years. I've built a routine that brings me joy, surrounded myself with people who genuinely care about me, and rediscovered the things that make me happy. Liz's chapter in my life may have ended in heartbreak, but it also paved the way for growth. And for that, I'm grateful. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes the hardest experiences lead to the greatest transformations. You don't have to settle for someone who doesn't see your worth. And you don't have to wait for someone else to validate you. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Here's to moving forward, with strength, clarity, and hope for the future.